Alright, hello everybody and welcome back. We're going to continue talking about hands, and today we're going to look at fists. Now, we're going to draw two different kinds of fists. So the first one is a fist kind of like punching the screen, so it's popping out, so it's the front view. So if you make a fist and you look at it, it's what you're looking at. And then the second thing we're going to look at is down here. I drew these little finished versions first, and that's the inside of the fist. So if you're left-handed like me, you can look at your right hand and it should look something like this. Mine's kind of wrinkly. I have a lot of wrinkles. I don't know why, but yeah, we'll talk about that. Anyway, so let's start with the front view because it can be hard, and I'm not going to talk about foreshortening too much because that can get tricky, and that's a topic for another day. So what do we look at? What are we trying to see when we're going to draw a fist? Okay, and I'm going to draw it live. I'm going to try that this time. So I have some layers here. You can see I have my titles. I have the example, which is this thing, and then two extra layers. So we'll start with a simple thing, and that is, what do I want to use? What shape will help me get this fist? Well, I think that a square shape is probably one of the best things to use, and it's in blue. Yeah, good. So a nice square shape, and I like to draw the square not quite even. So here's what I like to draw. If you look at your fist and you see the longest part of your fingers forms almost a square, but it's not quite a square. It's more like a weird trapezoid of some kind of like this, right? And then on top of it, you're going to see your thumb pop out. So I'm just drawing simple shapes. So that'll be where the thumb is, and then I have some bulging on the bottom. So I'm just going to put like a little ball here. It doesn't really matter. And that's about it. That's all the shapes I need. So yes, we're going to get into drawing the peanuts again for the fingers and all that. And this is just for simple sketching. It's not super detailed. I'm not trying to go into really strong detail. So what do we have so far? We have our weird trapezoid big blob. That's going to be like our big bulk. And then this is going to be our thumb. And this is going to be the ball of our hand. Kind of like how we draw the feet, if you remember. So now we have to try to draw the fingers. And that can be tricky because you're going to want to draw two peanuts that connect at about this line. So you want the peanuts to connect at about here. That's the idea, but anyway. So let's try to draw the peanuts connecting right there. So what we're going to have is we're going to have one peanut really high up, almost at the top. So here's one peanut, right? And these are very loose drawings. It doesn't matter. It's just a simple sketch, right? And then our other peanut, we're going to have four, remember, because we have 5 fingers total, obviously. And there we go. And now we're going to have one more. And there it is. And last one. Okay, so they're not very proportionate. They're not very scaled. But I'm going to add the other peanuts. So this is kind of like the other part of your finger that's curving back into the palm. And yeah, these look really terrible. I'm not going to lie. But that's okay. Now, when you make a fist, you usually can't see your fingertips from the front. So don't worry about drawing the last peanut down here and all that. We're not going to worry too much about that. And what you're going to notice is, as you can see here, this middle finger should pop out a little bit more because you tend to have a bigger knuckle on your middle finger. So you saw my big drawing here. This looks like it should be the middle finger. So should I have one more up there? Well, actually no. All I'm going to do, and when you're sketching, always feel free to like go back and erase or draw over. I don't like to erase much, so I'll just go in and make this middle one just bigger. I'll just sketch on top of it. So I made the other one smaller. I'm making this one bigger. And then I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger too, because this one tends to be the second biggest finger on your hand, unless you have a weird hand or something. So this one I made it a little bit smaller. This one I extended it and made it a little fatter. This one, same thing, made it a little fatter. And the pinky is weird. Everybody has different pinkies. My fiance has a weird pinky. I love it. Okay, so that's it for this layer. We have our basic shapes. Now let's get into some, and here's what I'm going to do. To help me draw, I always lower the opacity so that I can barely see it. Hopefully you can see it too. Why'd you go over there, thingy? Get back here. Okay. Now, let's draw the next part. So, oh, my roommates are talking. So the next part is, I'm going to focus on this because this is the front part of your fist. If you look at your fist, you can do your fist two ways, with your thumb on top or with your fingers on top. So I'm going to draw the fingers on top just like it's shown here. Your fingers are on top and your thumb is tucked in. So your joint here is going to be your biggest joints. So I'm going to draw them quite exaggerated. And I'm just drawing the outside. Here it's kind of like where the skin would be. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, and then the pinky. And there's that. Good. You notice I have a lot of room down here. Uh-oh. That could be a problem, right? Not really. It's a sketch. I don't have to follow these lines exactly. They're guides. They're not laws. Okay, so I have my little joints, and now I'm going to draw here. Again, like try to follow a little bit, but I want to make this one a little bit, just a little bit higher up. And then there's that, and then look at this. I can drop that one down a little bit. That's pretty simple. And what I want to do at the top, I want to kind of come here and then maybe dip down. And I'm not even going to worry about the thumb yet. I'm just going to do this whole thing here. Okay, so I'll draw the thumb in after. This isn't my final layer, don't worry. So then we got something like that, and then we got one of those little palm thing. And this can tuck in, and you got a little bit of, I got a little bit of bulge right there. Don't know why, maybe I have fat hands for some reason. Okay, so now we have our highest point, or our point closest to our eyes, and then I haven't drawn in the thumb yet. So from here, all I'm going to do is follow the lines back. And sorry if I'm sniffing, it's kind of dusty in here for some reason. I'm going to open the window. So all I'm doing is following the peanut lines back, and I'm not closing them, I'm just kind of tapering them off at the end. Kind of like they bleed into the knuckle. That's the idea anyway. So I taper them off at the end. Taper them off, and notice how sketchy they are. They're really, really rough lines. And look, this one's even curving down a little bit. That's okay. It's just a simple sketch. Can make it a little bit better like that. And then these ones, I'll do the same thing. I'm basically just going to tuck them in and make like a little U on all of these, like a little U. So I'm pretending that all my fingertips got cut off in a horrible accident. Cool. Alright, so, and that's just to represent the fact that my fingertips are actually folding back in down there. So, and I just undid a little bit. So when you tuck in your fingers, you tend to squeeze the palm, and that causes a little bit of a bulge here, like that or something. I don't like this line. Maybe. That's a little bit better. Whatever. That's fine. For the purposes of this video, that is quite alright. So now look, I have this tucked in. I know that my finger, if I create a fist, I know that my fingertips will tuck in and only a part of my thumb will actually be visible. And that can go something like that. And I don't like drawing it too flat. It doesn't look right. I give it a little bit of roundness. So always remember your thumb has dimensions. So I just basically, I didn't even draw peanuts for the thumb. I just kind of went in and connected it the way I saw it. It's a little intuitive. It could be hard for really, really beginning artists, but that's okay. You'll get good at it eventually. Okay, so now we have our rough sketch, and now we can really work on it a little bit. And I'm not even going to worry about like shading lines and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is create another layer, just a layer, I don't care what it's called, and on top of it we're going to draw our final product. So I'm going to make that blue. I'm going to lower this opacity and get rid of the bottom one. I don't need it anymore because now I have a more refined one. And this, oh goodness, what is that marker? Cool. So this is going to be our final product. So I'm going to start again. Whoops. There. going to start again and just go here, and these lines may look a little rough, but that's okay. And then like that, and then bring them in, taper it off. And my pressure sensitivity on my digital pen is not that good. I have a good digital pen, but for some reason the software wasn't working, so it didn't properly install. And this looks like it's a little bit too far in. It didn't properly install, so I don't have a lot of sensitivity settings, and it kind of kills it because I should be able to taper this off way easier, but I have to do it fake using the stroke in and stroke out, and it kind of bugs me, but you know, sometimes it happens, software and stuff. Okay, and notice I'm not following the lines exactly, I'm not tracing. All I'm doing is using those lines as my guide. Whenever you draw sketches, your lines are your guide. They're not your incarceration. You're not stuck to those lines. Whoa, that was horrible. Let me try to smooth some of these out. This is going to be a really rough sketch, but that's okay. It's a little live, so I've never done one like this. Okay, so now let's work on the thumb. Make sure I'm using round shapes here. Cool, and here a very flat shape, and then here, there we go. Give it a little bit. Do I want to show nail? No, I don't. I can't see nail when I'm looking at it, so no thank you. So here I'm just going to connect here a little bit, and then do this, and this will be like a very pronounced knuckle. And here's another one, and another one, and the last one. And this one I'm going to tuck in a little bit, more, and look, I have way too much room down here, so I'm not going to follow that line exactly. Remember, you have to think on your feet. You can't, drawing and sketching isn't about copy paste, it's about what feels right. So this looks like it's too far out, so I'm going to flatten it a little bit because I want to look at it really dead on, dead from the center. There we go, and I can follow this line actually, and that's kind of nice. And then here we can create one more, right there. That's kind of like the lines when you open your palm, you kind of see those lines pretty much everywhere. Okay, so now we should have a final product. And that's it. And let me clean it up a little bit. Now obviously from here what you can do is add some, let me get a smaller brush here, and you guys can see what brushes I use. It's nothing magical. What's the size on this? 0.2. What were you? Okay, we can do that. Let's grab you. Oh, that's nice. So I like to make my wrinkles in the direction that is pointing away. So the top is very like, the wrinkles point away. And we'll add a few here, and a few more there. And if you add too many wrinkles, it starts to look kind of old, which I tend to have that problem. But normally I would be shading and it wouldn't be an issue, but because I'm not shading, I'm trying to give it dimension by adding a few dimension lines. But try to stay away from doing that too much. I think that's about all the lines I want to give. So that's kind of like a fist punching you. Now obviously the arm would be behind it directly, but we can't draw directly behind us. So always when you're drawing, remember to foreshortening. And that's a topic for another day. Just remember that word. Now, let's look at the second thing I wanted to show you guys. Sweet. Here we go. And this is a fist from the inside. So if you are left-handed like me and you make a fist with your right hand, you should see, and this time my thumb is on the outside. Not sure why I switched it, but whatever. You should see your thumb kind of covers the first 2, maybe 3 fingers, depending how flexible you are. Again, I can barely see my fingertips. Probably, if you really squeeze tight, you don't see them. And you tend to bulge up your thumb, and you leave your palm kind of more scrunched up here, but more flat than the top part. Top part tends to be very distorted. So, and then that's the arm, whatever. So that's the final product, and now let's think about the shapes that we want to use for that. So here's what we'll do. I'm going to turn, oh, I need you. Cool, so here's what we're going to do. And I'm gonna do it like that. Perfect. Okay. So here's what I'm gonna do. What shape would I use for this? I'd probably use kind of like a rectangle shape. So again, try to use simple shapes. Simple shapes genuinely help a lot. Hey, you know what? I can use your opacity. Do I have... oh, because I left them from the last one. Cool. Okay. So, simple shapes help out a lot. So I like to use simple shapes. So kind of going here, I got this thing going. Cool. And now I'm going to come up here. Cool. And then we're going to have one of them, kind of like this part right here. And then again, my knuckles aren't a straight line, so I'm going to try to draw them better than before, because on the last one I realized I didn't do a very good job. I should probably draw them more down. That's probably better. Again, I don't like erasing too much. So that's kind of like my palm. And then obviously, you know, your hand comes in here, right? So that's like your arm, your palm. You're going to have fingers over here. And then on this side, you're going to have your thumb. So I'm just going to draw kind of like a weird square, trapezoid, just weird shapes. Just some weird shapes to guide me. I kind of have that, and then I kind of have one of those. Kind of, could be bigger. It could risk being bigger. That's okay. And don't be scared to draw that many lines, because if you're like me and you're drawing on a digital thing, you can just erase them. And if you're drawing on paper, guess what? They invented erasers. Okay, cool. And then here we have like a little bulge. So I'll exaggerate it a little bit so you guys can see it more. And now let's work on our peanuts. Okay, I'm not going to do the thumb yet. That's going to be after. So we'll work on our peanuts. Basically what I did is I have my palm, my arm. This shows my arm on this side. Then we have our thumb, or like our thumb box per se, and it rests on a big bulge of muscle. And then a little bit of a bulge down here. Cool. So now that I'm going to work on the next one, let's bring that opacity down. I still want you guys to see it, so I'm not going to make it too dark. Don't do that. Why does it do that? Program's bugging out on me. Okay, cool. So now we will work on a couple things. First and foremost, our thumb is on top, so I'm going to draw my thumb first. And I'm just going to draw basically a couple of peanuts here. And there's another peanut if you want. And they don't have to be perfect peanuts. That's quite alright. And then the last peanut, which is half a peanut like you find in the bag. Cool. And that's like the outline for our thumb. Now obviously we want our thumb to look a little bit more human and less weird robot shaped. So we'll work on that later. But for now, that's going to be our simple outline. So good job with that. Next thing, we want our peanuts here. So I'm going to draw my middle one first, because that's where it's going to hit my thumb the most, I feel. So I'll draw it as far in as I can without it looking too weird. And I'm not going to draw over the thumb just because I don't want to. So here's one peanut, and then it's going to come out. It's going to be kind of a huge hand. So there's that. That's my middle finger. And then when you make a fist, your fingers don't all go in a straight line. A lot of people draw fists and they draw all their fingers like in a straight line, and then bam. That's very, very, very rudimentary and cartoony. I don't encourage that. I mean, you can do that. That's fine, you know. But if you're trying to draw sketching and get a little bit better, a little bit more anatomically correct, let's try to stick to a couple things. So we have our peanut for our middle finger, and if you notice, your fingers kind of have a curve to them. So this one's going to come down a little bit, and it's not quite as long. So here it is. Oh, let me draw it a little bit higher. There we go, and it's kind of hidden back there, but it's like you can imagine the peanut closing off. I didn't draw it, but you can imagine it. And this is just the inner peanuts. So there's a peanut coming out from the back, and then there's one swooping in. But I'm not going to draw them all. So we have those two, and now let's work on our third one, which is, remember, our knuckles should come in like kind of like a curved line. All our joints, they're never in a straight line. If you open your hand and you look at it, you notice that your fingers, right? I'm just going to draw some fingers here. Yes, 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 yes. Your fingers have joints kind of like that, right? They're not in a straight line. They're all kind of at an angle, at a curve. So you always want to draw your joints on a curve. So let me erase this line. I don't need it, and I don't want it to confuse me later. So I'm going to draw my joints on the curve. Here's my ring finger. Cool, cool, cool. Alright, cool, awesome. And then the last one's going to be my pinky, which is going to be a little bit more inner, because I tend to have my pinky tends to go in a lot actually, but this will do for the purpose of the video. Okay, cool. And notice there's some room down here and there's some room up there. So all I'm going to do is just connect to my underlying shape. So I have this trapezoid thing on the bottom. I'm just going to connect, make sure I'm connecting everything, because no one has skeleton hands. Again, unless you've been in a massive accident. Connect to my shape. I have like a weird curve here, I said, and then here, and that's the arm. Here's the arm, and we just connect. And I'm not even going to worry about too much of this. I'm just going to draw a couple things. There we go. There we go. And oh, that should be a little bit. Oh. There we go. There and there. I thought my phone was going to start ringing. It just told me that the battery is low. Okay, cool. So we're missing one more thing, and that is the part of your fingers that dive below your thumb. So this is like the second joint, or this joint. Why would I want to? I thought I told it to never. Well, that's kind of like this joint here. What we're missing is these. So we're going to draw them right now. And those, I'm just going to draw. I'm not even going to draw full peanut. Again, I'm just going to draw a little U, and a little U. And I'm going to imagine that my finger just curls in a little bit on each end. And this one probably goes straight in. Cool. So that's our basic shape for our palm, and our hand, and our fist from the side. Now let's try to finish it and see what we can get. So I'll turn off the bottom layer. And let me make this opacity kind of low. Sweet. Okay, I did it again. People, every time you see me do that, you need to take a shot. Is that how the drinking games go? Okay, so let's pick a nice pen, and I was using the vector pen to do my outside. So all I'm going to do is trace this and try to follow my lines, but not be restrained by them. Like this is too thin, so I'm just going to curve it out a little bit. And that's that. Remember, always draw in circles. It's very weird and very rare to find straight lines on any natural form. Usually you find circles and shapes that are bent. So there goes that, and that's that. Okay, I'm going to start with my middle knuckle because it's my biggest one. Okay, and then I have my U, and then here my peanut goes in and out, and here my peanut goes in and out. Now here, don't be afraid to close it if you want. I'm going to leave the end open. Actually, no, I am just going to close it. And here we have this. And yeah, it's going to look a little weird. That's okay. Okay. So here we have our joints. Try to draw on the outside. I'm being a little bit too sketchy with my lines here. It's costing me, for the sake of doing it fast, it's costing me like the look. Kind of looks lopsided. That's okay. And then we have our U. I extended my U a little bit because I extended my joint a little bit. because I'm going to draw my pinky kind of like that. Cool. Alright, so we have our fingers. Now let's do these lines. And I'm just going to connect here, connect here, connect here. And here I'm just going to follow this, follow that. Try to draw this a little bit more straight. And then here, follow there. Sweet. And there I have some veins there. And then we have some of this stuff. Oh, I was missing the U right here. That's embarrassing. Okay, so, and this should look okay. Cool. So, a couple things I would change. I would go back in here if I were me doing this for real. And I would probably make this a little bit fatter. I like to have a fat thumb. Add a nail. You don't have to add that much of a nail. And let me go in and get a better brush. Yeah, for the inside I try to use a smaller brush. That way the lines don't compete. See? Get like some nice lines going. Just a few of these to show some shape. And here we go. Good. And here we have all these kind of coming together. And there too on the bottom. And I kind of left this area blank. If this was me coloring, I would probably darken this to black. But I think that looks okay. So hopefully this was able to help you. This is kind of a long one, but we knocked out two things in one. So I hope this helped. And thank you guys for watching. And I'll see you guys soon.